Hello Mark, this is Ted. My school number is SO341013 and I'm sophomore. Today I'm going to read Mellody Hobson, Colorblind or Color Brave. So it's 2006. My friend Harold Ford calls me. He's running for US Senate in Tennessee. And he says, Mellody, I desperately need some nation press. Do you have any ideas? So I had an idea. I called a friend who was in New York at one of the most successful media companies in the world. And she said, why don't we host an editorial board lunch for Harold? You come with him. Harold and I arrive in New York. We're in our best suits. We look like shiny new pennants. And we get to the receptionist and we said we're here for lunch. She motioned for us to follow her. We walk through a series of corridors and all of a sudden we find ourselves in the dark room. At which point she looks at us and she says, where are your uniforms? Just as this happens, my friend rushed in. The blood ran from her face. There are literally no words, right? And I look at her and I say, now, don't you think we need more than one black person in the US Senate? No, Harold and I applaud. We still laugh about that story. And in many ways, the moment caught me off guard, but deep down inside, I actually wasn't surprised, and I wasn't surprised because of something my mother told me about 30 years before. You see, my mother was ruthlessly realistic. I remember one day coming home from a birthday party where I was the only black kid invited, and instead of asking me the normal monthly questions like, did you have fun or how was the cake? My mother looked at me and she said, how did they treat you? I was 7. I did not understand. I mean, why would anyone treat me differently? But she knew. And she looked me right in the eye and she said, they will not always treat you well. Now race is one of the lowest topics in America that makes people ordinarily uncomfortable. You bring it up at a dinner party or in a workplace environment, it is literally the conversational equivalent of touching the third rail. There is shock followed by a long silence. And even coming here today, I told some friends and colleagues that I plan to talk about race and they warned me. They told me don't do it, that there'd be huge risks in me talking about this topic, that people might think I'm a militant black woman and I would ruin my career. And I have to tell you, I actually for a moment was a bit afraid. Then I realized the first step to solving any problem is to not hide from it. The first step to any form of action is awareness, so I decided to actually talk about race. I decided that if I came here and shared with you some of my experiences, then maybe we could all be a little less anxious and a little more bold in our conversations about race. Now I know there are people out there who have said that the election of Barack Obama meant that it was the end of racial discrimination for all eternity, right? But I work in the investment business and we have a saying, the numbers do not lie. And here, there are significant quantifiable racial disparities that cannot be ignored. In household wealth, household income, job opportunities, healthcare, one example for corporate America, even though white men make up just 30% of the US population, they hold 60% of all corporate board seats. Of the Fortune 250, there are only 7 CEOs that are minorities. And of the thousands of publicly traded companies today, thousands only 2 are chaired by black women, and you're looking at one of them. The same one who, not too long ago, was nearly mistaken for kitchen help. So that is a fact. Now I have this thought experiment that played with myself when I say, imagine if I walked you into the room and it was a major corporation like ExxonMobil and every single person around the boardroom were black. You would think that were weird. But if I walked you into the Fortune 500 company and everyone around the table is a white male, when will that be that we think is weird too? And I know how we got there, here. Applause. I know how we got here, there was institutionalized. At one time legalized discrimination in our country, there's no question about that. But still, as I grapple with this issue, my mother's question hangs in the air for me. How did they treat you? Now, I do not raise this issue to complain or in any way to elicit any kind of sympathy. I have succeeded in my life in my wildest expectations, and I have been treated well by people of all races more often than I have not. I tell the uniform story because it happened. I cite those statistics around corporate board diversity because they are real. And I stand here today talking about this issue of racial discrimination because I believe it threatens to rob another generations of all the opportunities that author us want for all of our children, no matter what their color or where they come from. And I think it also threatens to hold back businesses. You see, researchers have coined this term color blindness to describe a learned behavior where we pretend that we don't notice race. If you happen to be surrounded by a bunch of people who look like you, that's purely accidental. Now, color blindness, in my view, doesn't mean that there's no racial discriminations and there's fairness. It doesn't mean that at all. It doesn't ensure that. In my view, color blindness is very dangerous because it means we're ignoring problem. There was a corporate study that said that instead of avoiding race, the really smart corporations actually deal with it head on. They actually recognize that embracing diversity means recognizing all races, including the majority one, but I'll be the first one to tell you. This subject matter can be hard, awkward, uncomfortable, but that's kind of the point. In the spirit of debunking racial stereotypes around that black people don't like to swim, I'm going to tell you how much I love to swim. I love to swim so much that as an adult, I swim with a coach, and one day my coach had me to do a drill where I had to swim to one end of the 25-meter pool without taking a breath, and every single time I failed, I had to start over. And I failed a lot. By the end, I got it. But when I got out of the pool, I was exasperated and tired and annoyed, and I said, why are we doing breath holding exercises? And my coach looked me at me, and he said, Mellody, that was not a breath holding exercise. That drill was to make you comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's how most of us spend our days. If we can learn to deal with our discomfort and just relax into it, we'll have a better life. So I think it's time for us to be comfortable with comfortable conversations about race, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, male, female, all of us, if we truly believe in equal rights and equal opportunity in America, I think we have had real conversations about this issue. We cannot afford to be colorblind, we have to be color brave. We have to be willing as teachers and parents and entrepreneurs and scientists. We have to be willing to have proactive conversations about race with honesty and understanding and courage. Not because it's the right thing to do, but because it's a smart thing to do, because our businesses and our products and our science, our research, all of that would be better with greater diversity. Now, my favorite example of college bravery is a guy named John Skipper. He runs EXPN. He's a North Carolina native, quintessential challenging. Why? He joined ESPN, which already had cultures, inclusion, and diversity, but he took it up a notch. He demanded that every open position have a diverse slate of candidates. Now, he says that the senior people in the beginning bristles and they would come to him and say, do you want me to hire minority or do you want me to hire the best person for the job? And Skipper says his answer will always say yes. And by saying yes to diversity, I honestly believe that ESPN is the most valuable cable franchise in the world. I think I think that's a part of the secret sauce. Now I can tell you in my own industry at Aerial Investments we actually view our diversity as a competitive advantage, and that advantage can extend way beyond business. There's a guy named Scott Page at the University of Michigan. He's the first person to develop a mathematical calculation for diversity. He says if you're trying to solve a really hard problem, really hard, that you should have a diverse group of people, including those with diversity in intellects. The example that he gives is the smallpox epidemic. When it was ravaging Europe, they brought together all these scientists and they were stumped. And the beginnings of the cure to the disease came from the most unlikely source, a dairy farmer who noticed that the milkmaids were not getting smallpox. And the smallpox vaccination is bovine based because of the dairy farmer. Now I'm sure you're sitting here and you're saying I don't run a cable company, I don't run an investment firm, I'm not a dairy farmer. What can I do? And I'm telling you, you can be called brave if you're part of the hiring process of an admissions process. You can be called brave. If you're trying to solve a really hard problem, you can speak up and be called brave. Now people will say, but that doesn't um, but that doesn't add up to a lot, but I'm actually asking you to do something real simple. Observe your environment at work, at school, at home. I'm asking you to look at the people around you purposefully and intentionally. Invite people into your life who don't look like you, don't act like you, don't come from where you come from, and you might find that they will change your assumptions and make you grow as a person. You might get powerful new insights from these individuals. Or, like my husband who happens to be white, you might learn that black people, men, women, children who use body lotion every single day. Now, I also think that this is very important so that the next generation really understands that this progress will help them because they're expecting us to be great role models. Now, I told you my mother, she was ruthlessly realistic. She was an unbelievable role model. He was the kind of person who got to be the way she was because she was a single mother with 6 kids in Chicago. She was in the real estate business where she worked extraordinarily hard but oftentimes had a hard time making ends meet. meet. And that meant sometimes we got our phone disconnected or our lights turned off or we got evicted. When we got evicted, sometimes we lived in the small apartment that she owned. Sometimes in only one or two rooms because they weren't completely, and we would heat our bath water on hot plates. But she never gave up hope, ever, and she never allowed us to give up hope either. This brutal pragmatism that she had, I was 4 and she told me, Mommy is Santa, laughter. She was this brutal pragmatism. She told me so many lessons, but the most important lessons was that every single day she told me, Mellody, you can be anything. And because of those words, I would wake up at the crack of dawn, and because of those words, I would love school more than anything. And because of those things, when I was on the bus going to school, I dreamed the biggest of dreams. It is because of those words that I stand here right now, full of passion, asking you to be brave for the kids who are dreaming those dreams today. Applause. You see, I want them to look at the CEO on television and say, I can be like her, or he looks like me. And I want them to know that anything is possible, and they can achieve the highest level that they ever imagined, that they will be welcome in any corporate boardroom and they can be any company. You see, this idea of being the land of the free and home of the brave is woven into the fabric of America. America, when we have a challenge, we take it head on. We don't shrink away from it. We take a stand. We show courage. So right now, what I'm asking you to do, I'm asking you to show courage. I'm asking you to be bold as business leaders. I'm asking you to not leave anything on the table. As citizens, I'm asking you not to leave any child behind. I'm asking you not to be colorblind, but to be color brave, so that every child knows that their future matters and their dreams are possible. Thank you. Applause. Thank you. Thanks. Applause.